All right, well, let's go from Charlottesville to Blacksburg because the Hokies of Virginia Tech are up next. Tell you what, man, last year, Virginia Tech was certainly believed in by a lot of folks, and they've had playoff aspirations really the last two seasons under Brent Pry. I was buying Virginia Tech stock last year. That obviously did not turn out to be a great investment as they go 6-7, just 4-4 in conference play. But five of those seven losses, Trey, were by one score last year. They had all kinds of injuries. They had terrible luck. They had the Miami game literally stolen from them by the conference replay and on-field officials. It felt like that season could have been so much more if Kyron Drones had stayed healthy, if they'd just gotten the ball to bounce their way. And yet, I do also think it's fair to say that Pry is maybe running out of time in Blacksburg. There is a standard of winning at Virginia Tech, and so far he hadn't quite gotten there.
Yeah, and you can point to a lot of things last year. You mentioned Kyron Jones' health. You mentioned the one score games going 0-5 in those is never going to be good. But man, 0-5 feels kind of like it could be a coaching problem. It's if you lose a couple, if you go 500 in one score games, but 0-5 is rough. Especially when you look at some of the teams that they were in one score games against. That Vanderbilt game off
Oh,
the top last year, where I think they were, yeah, I have it right here. They were favored by 13. I know they were on the road, but we were just sharping that in as a win to kind of kickstart their dark horse ACC campaign last year. But hey, I mean, Kyron Jones, he got a lot of hype last offseason. And I think there's a fantasy football term called a post hype sleeper. And I think it's where you kind of re-justify your takes on somebody that didn't live up to the hype that you had last year and everybody's now
mm-hmm.
sleeping on him. I think he's a post hype sleeper. I think he still does have in the tank to be one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC. He's a dual threat guy. He's got to work on being more consistent as a passer. Last year as a team, I know he was missed 3 games, but as a team last year, they didn't go over 213 yards other than the first game of the year and the last game of the regular season. So Vanderbilt and Virginia
Passing, you mean?
passing, yes,
Oh,
just
yikes.
passing. They were never over 213 except for the sandwich games at the first game and the last game. And they only topped 200 yards 3 other times between weeks 2 and weeks 13. So
Wow.
it was rough. We had a lot of really rough watches throwing the football for Virginia Tech last year. Really, the biggest thing though that I'm worried about though, they've got to figure out a way to replace Brayshaw Tootin as
Yeah.
the running back. He was the offense last year when Kyron Jones was struggling or when he was out. Got to find a way to do that. They got Terrion Stewart, who I think is a great start to that. He was a great running back at Bowling Green, one of the best in all of G5 last year. 2,367 career yards for the Falcons up in the MAC. And they lost all their top 4 receivers. I wasn't in love with their receiving core last year. That kind of
Yeah.
was part of the problem with the passing game, but they went and got some interesting guys. Cameron Seldon from Tennessee. Donovan Green is in his 7th year of college football. He's coming over from Wake Forest. So
Yep.
not done with the COVID babies yet. We got a few to squeeze through the system. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting on offense to see if that all comes together to a more consistent passing game, and that being something they can lean on in those close games. Because down the stretch in those close games, it was really easy to stack the box and just stop the run, and you were going to come out on top against Virginia Tech eventually.
Yeah, all five offensive line starters are gone as well from a year ago. Again, same thing I said about Wake Forest. When you want to build on a rushing attack, I do have questions about that offensive line. Defensively, though, I think this is where the team is probably going to win some of their games. I love Jaden Keller and Caleb Woodson at linebacker, the team's top two tacklers from a season ago. It's an entirely new secondary, though, and that scares me. Okay, how do you say their defensive coordinator's last name? Is it Seifsk? Like Sam Seifs? Seifkes?
Sipes?
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
entirely
I should have
sure.
looked up a pronunciation for that. I made a note
I
about him, but I didn't think I was going to have to pronounce it on the show.
I looked for a pronunciation, so Virginia Tech fans, please let us know.
Sipes.
I know that we've got some that listen, so write in 3techpod@gmail.com or DM us. Side note though, old Sammy boy is a dead ringer for Andrew Scott with a receding hairline. The actor, Irish actor, if you watched Sherlock back in the day, he played Jim Moriarty. He's in a bunch of other movies. Go look up his picture and then pull up Andrew Scott and tell me that I'm not just 100% correct. It's uncanny, the resemblance there. But move to the schedule for me here. I feel like Virginia Tech has a really nice on ramp, especially into conference play. Now they play South Carolina in Atlanta to start. That's probably a loss. I think South Carolina could give them all kinds of fits physically. But then there's Vanderbilt at home. That's a revenge spot. They play Old Dominion, which is kind of a rival for them, right? And they've struggled with the Monarchs in the past. Wofford at NC State and Wake Forest. Certainly not any teams to start the year other than South Carolina that you feel like are complete or that are just tenacious and going to boat race you, right?
I don't think so. Obviously, I mentioned that they lost to Vanderbilt last year, so
They
that's
did.
just going to be in the back of their minds, I think. And even though they're at home for that one, yeah, that NC State game, I really don't know what to think of NC State. I think that
I know.
they'll be. I was so high on them going into last year, and that just didn't work out for a brevy of reasons that we'll get into on the next episode. But yeah, Wake Forest at Georgia Tech is going to be really difficult. But the back half of that schedule is really interesting to me. You pencil in, you want to pencil in at least 3-2, but you look at where they're playing some of these games. They're at Florida State. If
Mm-hmm.
Florida State's still relevant in November, I think that's going to be a really difficult game for them. They're home against Miami and Louisville, but those are two teams that I think are better than them. So at Virginia at the end of the year, it's a rivalry game. You never want to play those on the road. They just have a lot of tricky road games up and down the schedule. They go to NC State, to Georgia Tech, to Florida State, and to UVA. I think how they do in those road games, their record in those 4 games on the road is going to tell me what they do this season. Because if they go 0-4, I think Brent Pry is packing his bags. If they can find a way to go 2-2, they'll probably improve on their 6-win total from last year.
Yeah, I do wonder what saves Brent Pry's job if he is indeed kind of on the flaming hot seat, which it's certainly felt like at times. I know that fan base is frustrated; they want to break through. There's certainly the resources and the talent in the program to break through, and there was a reason why we were high on them last year. Yeah, the road games are tough. This schedule is not one that I want as a head coach who's got to win and got to win now. Ceiling, I can certainly see 8 wins. I could get you to 8-4 if you can go and win at NC State. If you can win at Florida State, then sure, let's talk 8-4 and let's set a new milestone for the program and keep chucking forward towards the top of the ACC. But boy, if not, could get spicy in Hokie land really, really quickly.